I'm going to put it as simply and succinctly as I can. If the ethics report about Matt Gaetz exonerated him, everyone would be eager for it to be released on the Republican side. To catch you up, Donald Trump nominated now former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz to be his attorney general. Yes, Gaetz is unqualified. Yes, Gaetz is immorally and completely, from an ethical standpoint, he has no business being in that role. It would make more sense to nominate Matt Gaetz to the primary committer of crime rather than prosecutor of crime. And much of it centers around wild allegations of Gaetz participating in drug-fueled orgies with underage prostitutes whom he appears to have paid for sex through Venmo, ladies and gentlemen. And there is an ethics report that was scheduled to come out last Friday. However, it hasn't been released. And the reason it hasn't been released is that earlier last week, when Donald Trump nominated Gaetz, Gaetz immediately resigned from Congress. It is not typically the case that ethics reports are released by Congress about individuals who are no longer members of the House. It has happened before, but it is not typical. And so now there is an argument happening involving Republicans and Democrats and the usual suspects who have their own careers primarily in mind, not what's best for you or what's best for me. There is an argument now about whether that ethics report should be released. Counter to the claim that you don't usually release ethics reports about individuals who are no longer members is the obvious relevance and salience of this report, given the role that Matt Gaetz has been nominated for, and given Gaetz's obvious attempt to suppress its release by resigning from Congress. Here is CNN's Brianna Keeler asking Republican Congressman Carlos Jimenez whether Gaetz would be a good attorney general. And Jimenez is doing the normal kind of distraction reaction.
So do you think that Matt Gaetz would make a good attorney general?
It doesn't matter what I think. The president-elect of the United States thinks that he'll make a good attorney general. Look, the president has every right to choose who he wants to choose as attorney general. I have made no secret. I'm not a fan of Matt Gaetz. I wasn't a fan of his when he was here. And I think that he was disruptive here in the House of Representatives. But the president also thinks that things need to be shaken up at the DOJ and the FBI. And Matt Gaetz has shown, if he's shown anything, that he is a disruptive force. And so, you know, the president has faith in him. Now it's up to the Senate to determine whether they want to affirm that nomination or reject it. And that's how it goes in our country. And so I expect that the process will be followed, and that we in the House should facilitate the Senate in their deliberations and how they determine whether he should be affirmed or not.
You can't find a more banal, anodyne, borderline meaningless comment about the Matt Gaetz situation. And this is the way a lot of them are sort of playing it. Michael Guest is the Republican chairman of the House Ethics Committee. He told CNN's Manu Raju he's not sure he does want that report released.
Have you heard from Trump or his team at all about this?
Not heard from President Trump or any member of his team.
There are two options, you said.
Well, no, what I said is I view a public release versus a conversation about transmittal to the Senate. I think those are separate conversations that the committee needs to discuss.
Is the report actually done at this point?
The report is not complete.
It's not.
That's correct.
And so how could you possibly release it if it's not done?
That is something that we will be talking about today. And that's another reason I have some reservations about releasing any unfinished work product.
How far would you say it is from its completion?
It has not gone through the review process.
So, of course, they might just never finish it. That would be another way to suppress its release. Now, I know that most of you know exactly what is going on. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, who's been a guest on this show, says what every single one of us is thinking, which is they're just trying to hide something. It's blatantly obvious to anyone with a brain, a brain.
From the Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest saying that he would prefer to not release an unfinished work product saying that he's weighing whether to release it publicly or directly transmit it to the Senate. What do you make of that?
They're hiding something. Like where I come from, if there's a report about somebody's misconduct and there's a gang that's trying to keep it from coming out, most people in America, in any cafe, any bar, any church that I go to would be like, what are you hiding? Why won't you let us see this? And so that is the conclusion that an American jury would draw if you tried to like hide the ball on something. But the court of public opinion, which is more important and needs to have faith and trust in its top law enforcement officer, is going to say, this guy has no credibility. He can't lead America's police force and our law enforcement agencies if there's these questions that are being hidden by his own people.
Now, there are two realities that we have to contend with. As Eric Swalwell points out, any reasonable person capable of even the most basic critical thought would say, if the report cleared him, they would release it because it would put this entire controversy to bed. Imagine if they could turn around and go, listen, you know what? We did an investigation. We reviewed it. We're ready to release it. Gaetz didn't pay underage girls for sex on Venmo. Gaetz didn't hide some of those expenses on Venmo by saying he was reimbursing people for gas or whatever it was that's being looked at. He didn't do any of this stuff, and now we can confidently move forward with him. If they could do that, that would help Trump, that would help Gaetz, that would help everyone who wants to be close to power. The fact that they don't seem to be doing that, of course, suggests that the report would not exonerate him. But then there's another side to this, which is that it doesn't seem as though in 2024, statutory rape is a deal breaker for MAGA. Even if they did release it, and even if it said, we do have reason to conclude that Gaetz was trafficking underage girls across state lines and paying them for sex and drug-fueled orgies, even if that's what it concluded, a lot of the people that right now are spearheading at least the public-facing apparatus of MAGA would either say the report isn't trustworthy and can't be believed, or the allegations are unfounded, or this is what they did to Trump and this is what they did to Kavanaugh and now they're doing it to Gaetz and we're ignoring it and moving on. And most MAGAs would be absolutely fine with that. So I don't even really see this as big of a deal if the report was damning. The question is ultimately going to be, and in this sense, Congressman Jimenez is right, what do the Republican senators believe? Because if reports are true that half have already said, we're not voting to confirm this guy, Gaetz's nomination is going nowhere. With Donald Trump being elected and the insane cabinet appointments and everything else he has planned for the next 4 years, right-wing media is trying to create a new normal and convince us that the zeitgeist is changing. So it's never been more important to be an engaged and savvy news consumer. And that's where our sponsor, Ground News, comes in, an independent app and website designed to help you navigate the chaos of today's current events. For every story circulating, Ground News will give you instant access to the sources reporting on it, transparency on political bias and credibility. You can see who owns the news outlets, what are their narratives and special interests that might influence them. This will ease the mental load of sorting through what we see in the media so you can decide where is the truth. We have to stay aware of what Republicans are up to. Ground News is a really valuable tool so that you can stay on top of it. Go to ground.news/Pacman to take advantage of their biggest sale of the year. You'll get 50% off their top tier Vantage plan. The link is in the description or scan my QR code.